Please come to order. Good morning. Welcome to the Commissioner of St. Mary's County meeting this date, Tuesday, August 18th, 2026. I am Randy Guy, Commissioner President, South St. Mary's County. I'd like to introduce the other commissioners. Sitting to my right, residing in the 1st Commissioner District, which includes Ridge, Piney Point, St. George Island, Mr. Eric Colvin.
Good morning.
Mike Hewitt will not be here today. He is out today, so he won't be here. Sitting to my left, residing in the 3rd Commissioner District, which includes Charlotte Hall, 7th District, Golden Beach, and Mechanicsville, Mr. Mike Alderson Jr.
Good morning.
Residing in the 4th Commissioner District, which includes Lexington Park, some of California, Great Mills, and some of Hollywood, Mr. Scott Ostro.
Good morning.
See at the end of the dais is David Weisskopf, our county attorney.
Morning.
I'm sorry, county administrator. Yeah, I'm halfway. He's an attorney too, yeah.
Muscle memory there.
Yeah, muscle memory, okay. At the end of the dais on my right is Julie Birch, our recorder for today. Sitting at the table to my right is our communications director, Ms. Jenna Guzman.
Good morning.
Our video production team is behind the glass, so please turn your cell phones off or on vibrate. When you come to the presenter's table, please approach by coming down the center aisle, and remember, this meeting is being televised, so you need to speak clearly and directly into the microphone for recording purposes. In other words, look good. You're on TV. At this time, we have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner Alderson. Please stand.
Lord, as we keep our friend Tom Jarbo in our thoughts, let his friends and family feel your real and constant presence, so they know they are never alone in their grief. We seek your blessings on the task before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
You join me in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Alderson. Next, I need the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Now we have numerous proclamations. We're going to start with the Child Support Awareness Month. Then we have National Black Business Month. And we have National Aviation Day. Commissioners, let's move forward.
We're here with Child Support Awareness Month. Thank you for coming up. Our law enforcement partners on the back. All these lovely ladies right over front. So we're just gonna stand with your backs to the desk. We'll leave one spot right here in the middle, so we'll open up this. Do you mind if I touch it? I'm just gonna tilt you this way and then slide it. Yeah, she's got it. Slide in. So you're gonna tilt this shoulder forward and this one back a little bit. And that way, do you wanna get? That'll work. We're gonna switch if that's okay. We're gonna add Alexis all the way over here. Great. If you're in the back, you're trying to find a window.
Thank you. All right, so we have quite a crowd up here for a very important...
Microphone.
Oh, yeah. Where is it? Usually I rumble loud. Usually I'm loud enough. Ask my wife and kids. It's a very important proclamation up here. This child support is something that shouldn't have to be enforced, but it unfortunately does have to be enforced. And I appreciate the efforts of everybody up here who does do this sometimes thankless job. Whereas every child has the opportunity to a quality of life that includes emotional and financial support from both parents. And whereas the child support program is a good investment encouraging responsible parenting, family self-sufficiency, and child well-being by providing assistance in locating parents, establishing paternity, modifying and enforcing support obligations, and obtaining child support for children. And whereas child support payments are associated with increased parent-child engagement, which can lead not only to better academic and social incomes for children, but also to better family relationships. And whereas we recognize the dedicated professionals of the Department of Social Services, the judiciary, court personnel, the sheriff's office, and all child support professionals whose collaboration helps establish and enforce child support orders, ensuring that children and families receive the support to which they are entitled. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, do hereby recognize August 2026 as Child Support Awareness Month and encourage every parent to be an active participant in their children's lives and to meet their financial and emotional needs. Signed this date, August 18, 2026, Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
I'm Alexis Zoss. I'm the director at the Department of Social Services. Honored to be here today to recognize all the work that goes into the child support program and the team that lifts it up. It may seem like a small program in the scheme of the benefits programs that are administered, but it is huge and life-changing for those people those families and children who benefit from it. And for the staff that work in it, they take it seriously. We have, over the last year, 2 years, had a concerted effort on working to make sure that the orders that are written in court are enforced. And that means that the full orders, that families are receiving the full amount that are ordered by the court. And talk about a team, that takes everybody up here and many more. So I would like to just congratulate this team and this program on this date, this August Child Support Awareness Month. And I'm going to, if it's okay, Commissioners, I'd like to pass this around so they can get their name right there up there on that TV, right? No, to the audience.
Becky Smith, Child Support Program.
I'm Lorna Herbert, Child Support Enforcement Supervisor of the Child Support Program.
Cynthia White, Child Support Administrator, Child Support Program.
Wendy Walton, Family Investment Program Administrator.
Oh, thank you.
Going around.
Charles Wood, Assistant Director for Department of Social Services.
Deputy Patrick Andy, St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office, Child Enforcement Unit.
Corporal Chad Hartzell, St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office, Child Support Unit.
Sergeant Merritt, I'm the supervisor of the Child Support Unit.
Lieutenant Hedrick, Supervisor, Special Operations Division.
Captain Russell, St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office.
Camille Holt, Child Support Enforcement Specialist.
Kennedy Frazier, Child Support Specialist.
Kiera Chase, Child Support Specialist.
Miranda Kaiser, Child Support Specialist.
Up next is National Black Business Month. If you're here, it's National Black Business Month.
Hello, good morning, good morning.
Who's reading? So if I could have you step back, please. Do you mind if I touch you? I'm just going to put you like this and then. Here, let's slide. Slide everybody down. Okay, if I can everybody tighten up just a little bit. You want to turn this towards me a little bit? Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is always a privilege to get to read this proclamation because we owe so much to the members of our black business community here. There's some amazing businesses, and I want to make sure to just put a personal note out there to get out there and support our local black-owned businesses because it's very important. Whereas the National Black Business Month was founded in 2004 by Frederick E. Jordan Sr. and John William Temple to recognize the contributions of Black-owned businesses throughout the country and to encourage the continued development of Black-owned businesses. And whereas St. Mary's County acknowledges and appreciates Black-owned businesses across the county and all that the businesses represent in our continued efforts towards diversity and equality. And whereas St. Mary's County celebrates the contributions, growth, and success of Black business owners and entrepreneurs. Whereas St. Mary's County encourages its residents to be intentional in supporting Black-owned businesses in their communities during the month of August and throughout the year, and to reflect on the numerous contributions of Black entrepreneurs in our county. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, do hereby proclaim August 2026 as National Black Business Month in St. Mary's County and urge every resident to support our Black-owned businesses. This date, August 18th, 2026, signed by all the Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. First and foremost, just want to thank the Lord for allowing us to be here today. And then thank the commissioners for their support. They really have committed to this Black business event, this Black business happening. And then I want to thank the community for supporting the Black businesses. And of course, the Black businesses themselves, for it's tough out here. And I just want to thank you for persevering, for doing the things that you do. And let's continue to just press forward, continue to support one another, and do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay. Elizabeth Liotti, the owner of Foundations Learning Center.
Tracy Frazier, owner of Notarized Today.
Peggy Clinton, owner of Him First Admin Services.
Hi, Emily Lacey with St. Mary's County Economic Development.
Sydney Grebb, Economic Development, and I couldn't say it better. Dr. Clinton, thank you for everything that you do, and particularly Emily. You two are just such quite a pair for our community, and we appreciate both of you so much.
Okay, let's take some pictures.
It's like he's got a speech ready. Okay. All right. You want to hold this for me?
Yep. So I'm gonna have you turn like this. That way we can slide closer. Oh my God, we might have to make a second row. If I could have everybody go this direction, please, just a smidge. A little bit more. Can I turn this? We're gonna turn you a little bit. There we go.
Next to my favorite Loadmaster.
Actually, you were good on this one. Okay, now we all have to move back the other way, because, sorry. We're going to have to keep moving. There we go.
All right. Thank you, Jenna. So it's especially special and fitting to be able to present this proclamation in the year that we had such a successful air show locally. So I think it's what a year to highlight aviation in St. Mary's County. So it reads, whereas in 1939, President Franklin Roosevelt proclaimed August 19th National Aviation Day, which is observed in the United States each year to celebrate the history and development of the aviation industry. And whereas the Patuxent River Naval Air Station continues to provide readiness for research, development, testing, testing and evaluation, acquisition, engineering, and fleet support to the entire range of manned and unmanned naval aircraft, engines, avionics, aircraft support systems, and their operations. And whereas St. Mary's County Regional Airport serves as the base of operations for the Maryland State Police Medevac, MedStar Washington Hospital Center, Chesapeake Aviation, Civil Air Patrol, the Navy, PAX Aero Solutions, Piedmont Flight Center, RCS Services, Southern Maryland Seaplanes, University of Maryland Research and Development Facility for Unmanned Aircraft Systems, Atkinson Aviation, AirTech, and the businesses that make up the Aeropark Business Alliance. And whereas the Naval Air Museum and Visitor Center is open to the public and a stop on the Explore Maryland by Air Challenge to provide educational opportunities for visitors to experience the evolution of U.S. naval aviation history and includes exhibits of naval aviation's technology, history, simulators, vital hands-on and interactive demonstrations of the aeronautical sciences. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, do hereby proclaim August 19, 2026, National Aviation Day in St. Mary's County. We thank the Airport Advisory Board for its volunteer efforts over the past year and encourage all citizens to take an interest in an advantage of local aviation opportunities. Signed, all the Commissioners of St. Mary's County. All right, Ken.
How come I always get something must be wrong in the water here or something? Because when we started the expansion 13 years ago, that's on Arrow's expansion, we all had a full head of hair, and at least I had. I don't know what's happened, but anyhow. It's been a lot of fun. I don't know if people realize what a community asset this airport has become. We have events out there now. We have training that's going on at 2, perhaps 3 very successful flight schools, which are almost running 24/7. Allison, I'll tell you, the runway extension's in place, which is already seeing benefits. We have the first, I think, among the first in the nation, of biofuel for Jet A. It might sound crazy, but a lot of companies want to buy that because it gives them feel-good stories for their stockholders. We've got the EAA doing hundreds of flights every year, free flights for young children to come out and fly. We've got the emergency services with Trooper 7, MedStar, economics, which I could talk for hours on. And 12 years ago, I think we had 4 tenants. We now have 30 on the airport. That doesn't include all the people that are within the Aeropark. So go on and on, but the county really has been supportive. Most airports will tell you it's a risk. A lot of, especially California, a lot of communities try to shut down the airport. St. Mary's County has been completely opposite. They've been supportive from the commissioners to the staff to all the agencies and so forth. That hasn't changed. It only gets better. So if you don't protect that asset, you end up losing it because the community doesn't like the airport. It goes away. And that's happened. We lose, I think they say like 5 or 6 airports every month in the United States.
Once you lose it, it's
and you never get it back. That happened to Tappahannock. We don't want it to happen to St. Mary's.
Thank you. Allison Swint, Deputy Director of Transportation, Airport Manager, and tough to follow that act. Just want to say I'm proud and humbled to work with so many passionate aviation professionals, and it is truly an honor to be out there at the airport. Thank you, Ken.
Good morning, Don Sheehan, Vice Chair of the Airport Advisory Board.
Thank you. Good morning, Gary Whipple, Deputy Director, Public Works and Transportation, Facility Capital Projects Manager. And I'd also like to recognize our federal aviation partners in providing all of the planning, guidance, and the grant funds for the expansion, and also the state of Maryland's Maryland Aviation Administration's Office of Regional Aviation Assistance. They provide our operating license for the airport, and they are tremendous sponsors of the airport.
Chris Fuller, Aviation Board member, and just wanted to add on that we appreciate that the commissioners appreciate and support the airfield operations and appreciate our inputs and recommendations. So it goes a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Paul Gambacorda, EAA Chapter 478, and appreciate all the support we get from the airport.
Thank you. John Norris, Director of Public Works and Transportation. I had some comments prepared, but I think Ken's covered them all. No, this is an exciting place to have to celebrate National Aviation Day. This has been a really remarkable year for St. Mary's County with the runway extension, the air show, and much more to come. The Naval Air Museum is a great historical resource for our community. But frankly, it's the leadership and the continued support of the county commissioners and the Aviation Advisory Board that really helps us achieve. So thank you for helping us move forward.
Pat Mooney, Project Manager of Public Works and Transportation.
Mr. Billman first spoke. Mr. Reed. I'm sorry. He contributed a lot to getting our airport built out, so he's done a good job, and he continues to do a good job. And we're an aviation community. Somebody said about our airport closing down. I can't imagine our airport closing down where all this aviation around here is just, we got one group, the aerospace, that just expanded another 10, Platform Aerospace is getting ready to expand another 10,000 square foot building to continue production, increase our production. So we're definitely an aviation community, and that's just the way it is.
And just to echo all these comments again and really stress the partnership that makes the airport so successful with multiple county departments, the Airport Advisory Board, all of the businesses that have partnered, and to the state, the feds. It's just such a huge success story and partnership, and really makes our airport a really special place. So thank you all. Let's take a picture here.
All of you.
Yeah, I know, that's strange.
Thank you.
Stressful. Watching my hip. What are you doing at my age?
Okay. Damn. Calling it Bill. Okay, next we have the Department of Land Use Growth Management briefing St. Mary's 2050 draft plan. Our director, Ms. Jessica, and your staff, whoever it might be.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm so tempted to move the microphone, but I won't. Anyway, good morning, Commissioners. Jessica Andritz, Director of Land Use and Growth Management. Sitting to my right is Deputy Director Brandy Glenn. Gabby Gleisner, our Planner 3, due to a recent promotion for the long-range planning section. Also joining us online, Leanne King, the consultant team lead from Clarion, and Jasmine Davidson may also be in the background as well. So the purpose of today's briefing is to provide you with a baseline of information regarding the status of the project and seek some direction for moving forward. The first 3 slides that we have are intended to provide you with a reminder of the law as it relates to the development and approval of the comprehensive plans. So this first slide explains that it's the Planning Commission's job to develop the plan. The Planning Commission conducted 2 public hearings, the first one back on June 29th and the second one on July 7th. And after deliberation on July 13th and again on August 3rd, by a vote of 5-2, the Planning Commission voted to send the draft plan to you with a recommendation that the plan be adopted. Then on August 10th, the majority of the Planning Commission signed a resolution adopting this recommendation formally. And so the chair of the Planning Commission signed an attested copy of the draft, which was uploaded to Diligent, along with the memoranda that reflected the project team's recommendations for refinement of that plan. This next slide shares just the required elements of the St. Mary's 2050 plan that come from the land use article. And the next slide explains that while it's the Planning Commission's job to put together a draft for your consideration, you, sitting as the governing body, ultimately have the final say-so when it comes to the adoption of the comprehensive plan. As you can see from this slide, it's your job to adopt, modify, remand, or disapprove the whole plan or any part of the plan. However, you cannot adopt or modify the plan without first conducting a public hearing. Now, there is a little nuance in the law that I'd urge all of you to keep in mind, and that language comes from Section 3-204 of the Land Use Article that says the Planning Commission's recommendation shall be considered approved if you fail to take action on the plan within 90 days after the Planning Commission's certification of an attested copy. And as I mentioned, the Planning Commission certified its copy on August 10th. So 90 days after that would take us to Sunday, November 8th. Under the general provisions article, I think it's 1-302, that deadline gets extended to the next business day, which would take us to Monday, November 9th. Now, the law also does allow for a 60-day extension if exigent circumstances exist. So if additional time was needed, that additional 60-day period would expire on Thursday, January 7th.
So I think this is a really, really important thing we need to stress, because I don't know that, at least I didn't know it. I don't think most of the board realize it, and I'm pretty confident the public doesn't realize this either. The law requires that we take some action or it's automatically approved.
That is correct.
Okay.
You are absolutely right, and that's why we wanted to emphasize that. So the next slide with the project timeline just kind of shows you where we are. When we first started talking about community engagement and the preparation of the draft plan, we forecasted about 18 to 24 months for the lifespan of the project. And as you can see from this timeline, we're right on time and at the end of the road. So a little overview then for how the plan was developed. You'll see on this next slide the summary of community engagement. You'll notice that we had 3 community engagement windows and all of the sessions that were held. And in between 2 of those times, the Planning Commission also conducted 10 work sessions between September 2025 and January 2026. And so this sort of shows the natural progression of how the plan was developed.
So I want one comment here too. You know, there's some stuff in here I might not agree with. There's some stuff in here that I love and think is great. But I don't think anyone can fairly look at the process you've done and say that we did not strive to get community input. There was exorbitant efforts put out, especially by your department, to get community input and multiple opportunities. So when I see people online saying there wasn't opportunities provided for community input, that's just wrong. Like, we can't help it if people don't pay attention and don't want to be involved. But there was many outreach efforts that were undertaken with extensive time put in by county government.
Yeah, we've almost gone 2 years into this, yeah. It's almost 2 years.
I would definitely agree with that. I attended several of the sessions, and sadly, they were not as well attended as they should have been. And I have seen the same things on Facebook, but I think you're definitely want to stress your department has done a phenomenal job in what you've accomplished so far and giving people the opportunity to get out and find out about this and attend these sessions and give input on this.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would also like to just mention that one of the things that we've shown the community when we've been out and about is the project website, which is easily accessible from LUGM's homepage, and Gabby Gleisner has been the lead on making sure that all of the information regarding the development of the plan, all of the news releases that Jenna and her staff have prepared, as well as links to all of the videos and photographs that we're taking at all of those events. All of those things are hosted right on the website so that, excuse me, if somebody was coming in new to the county and just heard about this comprehensive plan and what is that, they could follow the history of the project. They can watch all of the videos online through our YouTube page, and those specific links are provided there in reverse chronological order, so they can start right from the beginning and watch it all the way through. So it's really been a team effort there for sure on that. So while the plan was being developed, there were a couple of things that did change that I'm going to say are significant because significant thought went into them, but as far as impact to the community, pretty insignificant. But I wanted to point those out. And the first one is about the land use designation. So if you look back in the 2010 plan, you'll see that there are 23 land use designations. One of the things that made it difficult to change a zoning of a particular parcel, if there was a change in the character of the neighborhood, there has been significant time, obviously, since the 2010 plan was adopted. Folks would come forward and want to request a change of their zoning, but they first would have to amend the comprehensive plan because there was basically a one-to-one relation between the land use designation and the zoning ordinance. And traditionally, that's not how that's done. So the first thing that was done regarding mapping and land use designations was to consolidate that down. I want to be clear about the process for that. Staff and the project team together with Clarion looked at all of the land use designations and the zoning designations to figure out what made sense as far as consolidation. But as the result of the consolidation, there's no significant impact to a property owner as to what they can and cannot do with their property. It's just consolidating the land uses under some existing terms to make things flow a little bit more easy and make it simpler for our residents to understand what they can and cannot do with their property. Also, just a reminder about the public hearing draft, which was also made available on the website. That information was sent to MDP as required by state law to adjacent jurisdictions on April 30th, 2026. All right, so first, let me, before we go on, take a pause. The next 16 slides that we have for you today go into greater detail about certain nuances of the plan. But before I move forward, I wanted to make sure that you were ready for that level of detail, or if you wanted to move in a different direction. Are you okay with continuing through the presentation, or did you have specific questions or comments?
I'm okay.
I'm good with it, with the expectation that we'll have some work sessions in the future to review this. Nothing we're saying today is final.
Correct, correct. And so what I'll do is just go through, and these really 30,000 foot view, I guess with aviation. So anyway, I'll go with that view so you can understand in general what thoughts went into the plan, particularly in areas where we've seen higher levels of community engagement. So the first thing, first priority for the plan was ensuring that growth matched infrastructure capacity. And as you can see, there are various goals, policies, and action items throughout the plan, not just in the growth management section that support this theme. The next slide talks about housing affordability. And one of the things that we've been talking about is, well, you know, the state and the Office of the Comptroller have these very lofty goals of where they want the housing sort of interspersed throughout the state, what the state thinks is necessary in all of those jurisdictions. And so what we did is we started with the assumption that the state's numbers were accurate. And with that, the rest of the plan was formulated from there. To be clear, this doesn't mean that the aggressive growth strategies are what this plan is proposing, because I want to be clear on that. It's not. There are no significant changes to the growth areas, what people can and cannot do with their property. As you all know, where the rubber meets the road is going to be in the zoning ordinance, and we're just not there yet. But as far as housing affordability in particular, this particular plan does take a look at the issues that have been noted by the Comptroller's office sort of on the state scale.
Does the plan have any encouragement of I don't know what you call them, Commissioner Alderson, small homes, mini homes.
So we don't specifically call out tiny homes as a thing. But I would say that we do talk about missing middle housing, and that is something that definitely needs to be addressed, because there's a way to increase housing options within the community without necessarily building a huge apartment complex or building a bunch of single-family homes. There are ways to increase the number of dwelling units within a local jurisdiction without having to do such large projects, and addressing that missing middle housing is a priority in the plan. It's also something that we are expecting the Attainable Housing Work Group to study in more depth. And I will say at the end of the Planning Commission's deliberation on August 10th, they did want to make sure that the housing study and the work group that is proposed by the plan will also address the fair housing component. And just for those that might be watching at home, when we're talking about fair housing component, that involves carefully evaluating and identifying potential barriers to thriving communities for everyone, regardless of race, color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, family status, and disability. The next slide echoes, I think, what we've heard throughout the community and what you've certainly heard from me this morning. The plan itself does not propose any changes to the growth areas. There is one minor exception, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the plan doesn't propose big changes to the areas where, oh my gosh, we have to grow, we have to stick all these houses somewhere. Let's start encroaching on the rural areas that all of us hold so dear. The plan does not do that. So I want to make sure that that's clear, because I know through social media in particular, and some of the comments that have been made verbally and in writing, both at commissioner forums and also at the Planning Commission, there have been many statements about this is just going to ruin our rural character, and this is a terrible plan, and it was put together without any thought. None of those statements are true, I might suggest. So this slide is just important to understand that the draft plan does not propose any encroachment into the rural areas of our county. The next slide just underscores the importance of one of the other themes that we heard through the engagement, and also just makes sense from a land use perspective and also an economic development perspective, and that's the adaptive reuse and revitalization excuse me, of some of our older the sections of our community that are older, whether we're talking about infrastructure, we might be talking about facade improvements, and there are areas of the county that certainly struggle with this. And so the proposed plan supports and encourages opportunities. And that's something that we'll talk about, I suspect, as we move forward, once the plan is adopted, whenever that may be, as we start to move forward with updates to the comprehensive zoning ordinance, the CZO. That's where a lot of these policies and ideas will really take shape. The next topic that we have is town centers and village centers. That's another topic that has been the source of a lot of attention from the community, specifically whether Piney Point should remain a town center, which, by the way, is a secondary growth area. So we've got 3 growth area designations. One of them is the development district, so that's in Leonardtown and Lexington Park. Then we have our second tier growth areas, and those are our town centers. And then we have our tertiary growth areas, which are the village centers. Right now, Piney Point is a town center, but there have been some questions and some debate as to whether or not Piney Point should be changed from a town center to a village center.
So important clarification there. It is already a town center from the previous 2010 plan,
actually, a little further back than that.
Okay.
So if you take a look at this slide, you'll actually see back in 1988 that designation was applied. And I know that there have been comments from concerned residents that said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're changing Piney Point to a town center. We're not. It's the exact same thing as what has been in place since the 80s.
What was the rationale for not recommending it be changed to a business or to a village center?
Brandy, do you want to take that question?
I think that'd be good for public clarification so people can understand.
In this plan?
Yes.
Actually, we did, the consultant did recommend changing it to the village center, and the planning commission unanimously recommended not, or decided not to change it.
I think there were concerns of what would happen, I'm going to say, with existing businesses and things like that. People always get concerned, oh my gosh, if we downgrade now, and I choose downgrade intentionally, not down zone, because the comprehensive plan is not rezoning anything. It doesn't propose to do any of that, but just decreases the level and intensity of future development. And I think there was some concerns that there are certain areas within the town center that are already developed. What will that happen? What will that look like? What impact will be to the businesses? And that was something that we looked at.
What would that impact be? Let's say we did go and turn it into a village center. To the existing businesses that are there, how would that either negatively or positively impact them?
So the research that I did, it doesn't seem like there would be any impact. The Harry Lunenburg School is already a legally existing non-conforming use, so it would remain.
Remain that.
Correct. There are some zoning when we would get there. There's some land uses that would have to change to be consistent with a village center. The Piney Point terminal is industrial now. The village centers typically don't have industrial land use or zoning. However, there are pockets of industrial land use and zoning throughout the county that are not in growth areas. So it could simply be removed from the town center or the village if it was changed to a village center. It could simply be removed and still remain industrial. So nothing would change for the Piney Point terminal or those properties that are industrial now.
So if we change it to a village center, it won't make any difference to the present businesses.
And we're not.
I really looked at it hard, and I'm not seeing where it would affect anything.
And it doesn't result in downzoning of property owners.
No.
Okay. Something we want to keep in mind.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
All right, so the other, we've already touched upon these, so I think we can just skip over them, but there are some similarities and some differences regarding town centers and village centers, and one of the things that is difficult for anyone to picture right now is what is the difference visually. And so there is a policy and an action item that is a carry forward from previous versions of the comprehensive plan, adopted versions of the plan that talk about the need for master plans for town centers and village centers, because it really is hard to picture what that looks like without a picture to refer to. So that is something that is continuing to be proposed. This next slide here just shares the concerns that we heard from the community regarding the Piney Point designation, and their concerns really were emphasized as it relates to high flood risks, limited access to water and sewer, and limited ingress and egress from the area day to day, and then certainly in the case of an emergency. So the next set of slides addresses the concern about the ferry. So from what I understand, a lot of the ferry language that was originally proposed was a carry forward from previous comprehensive plans. You'll see on
Well,
the,
I don't understand that statement. It wasn't in the comprehensive plan before.
I believe it was.
There was ferry language in the 2010.
To the extent that.
Not to the
Not to the extent.
not to this extent. So,
Okay.
and if you actually, and I apologize if I misspoke there. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that this plan had a lot of detail, 3 specific goals and a lot of policies and action items. And I know from the last time, or actually a couple of meetings ago, when I sat with you to give you an update, there was some concern about the level of detail regarding this particular item. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see that the project team put together some language that still acknowledged the possibility of the ferry. Certainly don't want to undercut all of the work that economic development staff has done with partners around the state as it relates to the ferry consortium. But if you then turn to the next slide, you'll see that the proposal that is on the table now for consideration in this plan just references the ferry in the economic development element, not in the transportation element. The feedback that I think we received last time is the ferry language as originally placed there was too detailed, wasn't in the right place as a transportation item, but would be more appropriate and I think more broadly supported as an economic development item.
So just to address that quickly, because I've been somewhat vocal about it, I think this is great. I think this is good revised language. The ferry presentation that's been given to us in the past does not fit transportation. Like, I think what we were presented was a space-age solar-powered ferry that would give people a shuttle people, not vehicles, people only, across the bay. And I'll be honest, I think it would be wonderful to have. It would be great. I don't think we have the infrastructure here to support people coming here, and the routes that I've seen would not drive people here. It would make St. Mary's County a pass-through county to get to the Eastern Shore tourist locations. If we had a ferry coming, and this was like multiple phases down the road, but coming from DC down to St. Mary's County, that could really help with tourism and economic impact. But the proposal that we've seen in the past did not drive economic growth to St. Mary's County.
And I just don't see how so you come here on the ferry, and I just don't see, okay, so where do you go from there? We don't have, you can't catch a cab, you can't do all those things, so anybody who comes here on the ferry is, so you're gonna go to Leonardtown Wharf, and you're gonna be in Leonardtown. You're not gonna get really into any place else in St. Mary's County. So I would think something like that would need, I mean, if you could put your vehicle on it and then drive off, and then you're here in St. Mary's County and get back on it and then go, that's one thing. But I just don't see how people would want to, it would work. We don't have the transportation infrastructure to handle that.
So I fully support it being talked about in the economic development section.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Great.
But I agree with it. If it's not more than just transporting passengers, I don't think it's going to work. Not coming from the Eastern Shore, at least. People going there, maybe.
All right, so the last little bit here just kind of gives you an overview of where we are, or a summary of where we are now. So you'll see this next slide gives you the times, I'm sorry, not the times, the dates of when certain actions were taken. So if we can go to that next slide, yep. So it shows you, as I mentioned, when the public hearings were conducted, when the Planning Commission deliberated, which was on July 13th, they began to review and discuss the land use designation changes. That conversation and voting then continued on to August 3rd, and by the end of the evening on August 3rd, as I mentioned before, the majority of the Planning Commission, by a vote of 5-2, did recommend this plan forward to you with the memoranda that were also attached and included in Diligent. And then the August 10th date, as I mentioned early on, is important because that's when the minutes were ratified from the August 3rd meeting, and also that's when the signature on the resolution, all of the signatures were placed on the resolution, in addition to the certification of the attested copy of the plan. So that begins that 90-day time clock that we were talking about. You'll notice then on the next slide, just taking a special time to acknowledge that Diligent does have each of the memos that were shared and ratified by the Planning Commission as they deliberated. And then one thing that I think really needs to be underscored is that the plan and all of the memoranda that refine some language in the text, these are simply recommendations from the Planning Commission. As I said earlier when we first began, in order for you to adopt or modify a plan, you still have to conduct your own public hearings, and a final decision then would be made by you.
And I think that really is very important to underscore, because there's a lot on Facebook, and I still run into people who are like, I can't believe that decision has already been made, and I have to remind people that no decisions have been made. These are just recommendations. There's still a ways to go in this process. So it's very, very important to make sure that people are aware of.
Absolutely.
We've just been receiving input, recommendations from everybody, including the Planning Commission.
Right.
And it's subject to a public hearing by us.
That's
the commissioners make the final decision.
Correct. So this next slide then talks about the various land use designations overall, which ones were approved and which ones were denied. So let me talk about that for a minute. We talked about the consolidation of the 23 land uses to the ones that are currently proposed by the plan. Whenever a comprehensive plan is opened up and sort of dusted off, looked at, trying to figure out what has been accomplished since the last comprehensive plan and what direction do we see that needs to be changed, that's the time when you would also open up to the community. If somebody owns a piece of property and decides, I'd like to do something different with my property, making sure that that property has the appropriate land use designation. This is not their zoning district, but their land use designation. That's the first place to start. And so we did receive 8 applications, as you'll note here on this slide. One of those applications was withdrawn, and that was by Camp Maryland and the owners there. Based on the community input that was received, they came right up to the mic at the Planning Commission and said, thank you for all of the work that staff did to get us here, but based on the feedback from the community, we're withdrawing the application. So the next slide, again, 30,000-foot view, explains what the next steps would be in the process. It acknowledges the need for a public hearing and a decision, but I also know that before we get there, you all had expressed a need and a desire to have some work sessions to go through the plan, provide some feedback and some direction for staff. And so that takes us to the end of the presentation. We do have the last slide that if folks want to learn more about the project and what we've done for these 20 months now, that information can be had right from our website. It'll take you to the project site. It'll give you the history of the project. So the last thing then that we have to talk about is the timeline for what you see going forward. And there is a memo that was included in Diligent that outlines the upcoming meeting dates through the end of this calendar year. And I know that there were some conversations about work sessions, and I wanted to get some direction from you all as to what you thought the schedule for those work sessions needed to be. One of the kind of practical concerns that we need to think about, I think actually are twofold. Number one, you're still looking at that 90-day shot clock, right? If you do nothing, then the plan that has been recommended by the Planning Commission would become effective. So there's that. And then there's the other practical consideration of having work sessions that will delay the scheduling of the public hearing, and then decisions that you would make. And I know there's been a great deal of angst on both sides of the issue, whether the project continues forward as is planned, and it has been planned for the last couple of years, or do we hit the pause button and wait for elections to occur and shifts and sort of onboarding of a new board, whatever that may look like. And so that's why this memo has been put into place here, so you can see what the timing of things would look like. So with that, we're looking for some direction and guidance from you all.
Now, in actuality, it's not 90 days, it's actually 150, right? Because we could get a 60-day continuance.
Correct, and believe it or not, that continuance or extension is not something that the state has to approve. It's just a resolution that you would adopt in open session that say, hey, for these particular reasons, which we believe to be exigent circumstances, we need to extend the 90-day for an additional single 60-day time frame. But there's no approval that you need to get from the state. It's a local decision.
Which bumps that out to mid-January, right?
Early January.
Early January, okay.
So I don't know about the other commission. I feel that we have been involved in this for almost 2 years, this board.
Yes.
And I can't see why we should pass this on any further.
It's not
I really
fair to a
don't.
new board.
It's not fair to the new board. They come in and the process starts over for some of them. So
But we're also looking at, I mean, if we do some of these changes, a new board may just reject the whole thing anyway,
that's
right?
fine.
I mean,
That's
it's a
fine.
new
That's
board.
the new board. That's our prerogative. But I feel we should have our meetings, we should schedule them and move on to that 90, no more than that 90 days and make a decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so what I would propose is give us a couple weeks to do our homework individually, read through the current draft plan, and then maybe September 15th and September 22nd, we tentatively schedule in work sessions that afternoon where we just come back, not necessarily for major formal presentations from you, but we just come back with discussion about each of our individual ideas, what we like, what we want to add to, and then we take it from there.
Because I have a lot of, I mean, I've read through it once, and I'm going back through it again. I've already got like 20 questions that I was thinking of actually sending them off to you and via email so you can kind of see them and get a little prepped up on that.
That would be
Because I have a
helpful.
lot of
Thank you.
questions surrounding that. And there's a lot of, there's what, 9 elements in this? Yeah, so we need to chunk those out, maybe half and half across 2 work sessions.
I say we just power through the first work session. If we need a second work session, we take it.
I'll say give that a shot. And some of the things that concern me going forward here is the state has already said they have a willingness to basically throw, caution to the wind and say, we need to build high-density housing wherever. We can't do high-density housing wherever because at MACO last week in the housing sessions I sat in, everything was focused on, water and sewer versus well and septic. And those people should realize there is a distinct difference between the two, and portions of this county do not have that. I mean, there are other ways other things we need to look at and explore for the attainable housing side of it. But I think that's going to require cooperation with the state. And how can we get that cooperation? Because, things I've spoken to you about with drain field sizes for conventional well and septic. The state regulates that kind of stuff, right?
They sure do.
So if they're not willing to come to the table and look at more data that we can provide for them, then, this becomes, a case of us beating our heads against the wall when it comes to housing that people can actually afford.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a struggle. But like I said, this particular draft plan does not, one exception that I should have mentioned was one of the changes to the land use designations did propose a small addition to the Hollywood Town Center, but other than that, the town centers and village centers aren't proposed to be changed. So looking back at this schedule, when would you like to schedule your first, I'm going to call it a work session for you all to discuss amongst yourselves, ask staff questions, When
September
would you like
15th.
that to be? I'm sorry?
September 15th is good with
Okay.
me. Yeah, as soon as possible.
All right, and would you like that in the afternoon, that, like you would typically run one of
Right.
your budget work sessions?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any scheduling issue with that? Okay, all right, so we'll figure out.
September 15th, we'll go for that. And,
Okay.
Now, do we have to have a public hearing?
Yes, you will have to have a public hearing once you're ready to move to that stage. So
We'll wait
in
till
the
after
event.
that,
The goal for October public hearing.
Right, so in the event that you would only need one work session on the 15th, once
Right.
we've concluded that business, then we could make the same afternoon, right after the next, we could request that a public hearing be conducted. And as you can see from the memo, the earliest that could be then, based on that September 15th request, would be Tuesday, October 6th. So it sounds like that's what a
October
majority
6th?
of you are sort of kind of turning
October
towards.
6th sounds good to me.
As long as we can get our work done on the 15th.
As long as we can get our work done, I do
Sure.
not want to, and I want to go on record very clearly, I do not want to rush through this.
Agree.
And
Agree.
slam through this. If we're going to just do one work session and jump right to
Well,
a,
if we need to stretch to the 22nd for a second work session,
We'll go to the
we still have
22nd.
time to
We still got
get
time, yeah,
the
because you got to advertise.
October 13th
Yeah.
Correct.
public hearing.
Yep, that's on page 2 of the memo. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, we'll
So
start with,
tentatively, we'll look at October 6th then as our public hearing.
yep.
Is it possible to tentatively plan for a work session on the 22nd?
Yes.
Probably a good idea.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've got some options, and
Okay.
we'll see what sort of time you need after you've had a chance to really go through and absorb the information and think really critically based on feedback that you've gotten from your constituents. All right.
Okay.
Well, I think that concludes our time here. I appreciate your
Thank you all very
patience.
much. Great
Thank you very
job.
much.
Your staff, everybody did, very good.
They really have done a
Excellent
wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just for planning purposes, October 6th is the joint meeting with the base.
That's in the morning.
That's in the
That's in the morning,
Right.
that's here. And we're also going to, I think, have Board of Health is
Okay.
tentative for that day.
Okay.
busy day.
So then we might have
Letting
a
you know.
public hearing in the evening.
Well, the hearing, yeah, well, the
It'll be
hearing
in
would
the
be in the
evening anyway.
evening.
It's going to be a public hearing if we have it, which will be about 6 o'clock,
Right.
6:30. Okay. It'd be a full day, no doubt.
That's all I was.
Yeah.
It'd be a full rich day.
Okay. Again, I think we have Department of Land Use Growth Management, request for grant, St. Mary's College of Maryland to search for Cross
Well, I'm
Manor.
going to start with the draft agenda.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry about that.
You're stealing my
I jumped
thunder.
it. I took
This is
right
his
there.
favorite
I'm
part.
sorry.
It's his favorite part.
Okay, I get to say that we'll start as we always do with the draft agendas, Commissioner President Guy.
Good, good. Sorry
On
about that.
August 25th, you'll start at your normal time and place, followed by a proclamation for Women's Equality Day, and then the St. Mary's College of Maryland annual update from the new president. Department of Public Works and Transportation request for a public hearing for rental fees for airport terminal, conference room, and pergola, followed by county administrator time, commissioner time, and then adjourn. And then on Tuesday, September 1st, you'll start at your normal time and place, followed by 4 proclamations, one for National Recovery Month, National Suicide Prevention Month, Forget Me Not Month, and International Underground Railroad Month, followed by county administrator time, commissioner time, and then have closed session for litigation strategy, and then adjourn. And today, the first thing on the agenda is the Department of Land Use and Growth Management request for grant, St. Mary's College of Maryland, the search for Cross Manor. And we
Interesting.
also, in addition to Director Andritz, we have the esteemed professor, archaeologist, Dr. King. Welcome.
Welcome, ma'am. Welcome.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning again.
If you could keep your chair in front of the microphone, please. Thank you.
All right, so I've got Dr. King from the college here this morning, and she is requesting $5,000 from your emergency reserve fund to be used in conjunction with some funding that their organization has sought from MHT and the Society of Ark and Dove. And so, Dr. King, if you'd like to go into a little bit of detail about what this project is and what it would mean for St. Mary's County, that would be great.
It's always a treat to get Dr. King to explain history and help us picture it. So it's worth it just for this.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm trying to keep it a little short because I know you guys are busy. Is this on? Can you hear me okay? So first of all, I want to begin by thanking you for the opportunity for me to appear here today and to ask for your support for what I think is going to be an interesting and exciting project, and that is to find Thomas Cornwallis's Cross Manor. My name is Julie King, and I teach archaeology and anthropology at St. Mary's College of Maryland, and I'm always looking for ways to get our students out into the world of St. Mary's County, to travel its back roads, to learn its history. And with the state's 400th anniversary rapidly coming up, I thought finding the original Cross Manor House could involve our students in the search for a site that surprisingly has yet to be found. It's kind of a mystery why it hasn't been found. And as an aside, I want to point to the slide presentation and just say that the beautifully restored brick house that stands today at Cross Manor and that you see in the slide was built in 1750 or 1760, more than 100 years after the original house, and it's not the same place. The discovery of Cornwallis's 1638 Cross Manor could be a real gift from our students to the county as the 400th approaches. Could I get next slide? Let me tell you a little bit about Thomas Cornwallis. He was one of the largest investors in the colony, aside from the Calvert family. He served as an advisor to Governor Leonard Calvert, and he was the military leader who evicted William Claiborne from Kent Island. Next slide. So committed was Cornwallis to the Maryland Project that in 1638 he wrote to Lord Baltimore to say, after 4 years of living in the fort at St. Mary's, that he was going to build a house beyond the fort walls, and he hoped that others would follow his lead. This plat reconstruction shows the 2,000-acre Cross Manor patent. Here it's shown as a slightly darker shade. And this map was provided to me by the late Pete Hemmelhaber, who did a lot of research on these early settlements. But even Pete was stymied by the still missing MIA Cross Manor. Next slide. The paint was barely dry after Cross Manor was built when in 1645, Richard Ingle, a privateer who was mad at Cornwallis and at the Calverts, plundered Cross Manor 3 times and then set it up as his base of operations while he raided other properties in the colony. Tim Reardon, who wrote about Ingle's rebellion, described Cross Manor as the finest house in early Maryland. And he knows that because Cornwallis later sued Ingle, and a description of the house and its furnishings, what was destroyed, what was taken, has come down through the centuries. So this really valuable document describes this incredible house. Next slide. And just how fine? Well, these are 4 houses that Gary Wheeler Stone, who was formerly of the Historic St. Mary City Commission, has studied carefully, and he found that almost all of them are 2 or at most 3-room farmhouses. And this is definitely not bad for this early period on the Maryland frontier. Next slide. But the description of Cross Manor, the one that survives in that lawsuit, and which Stone was able to reconstruct from the court record, was something entirely different. Not only was it large with multiple rooms and this unheated cross passage, which was kind of a new thing in England, Stone pointed out that the house had one of the earliest, if not the earliest, dining room anywhere in Maryland or Virginia. Now, this is a common room today, but 400 years ago, it was an innovative design, even in England at that time. Next slide. So to find Cross Manor, we started with the known location of St. Inigo's house. St. Inigo's house was the 1640 Jesuit manor house at St. Inigo's, today part of Webster Field. Now, this site was found back in 2000 when Pat Woodburn was leading efforts to protect Webster Field's buried history while carrying out the installation's mission. Next slide. So the Cross Manor patent, could you go back? Yeah, the Cross Manor patent abutted St. Inigo's Manor, so they were right next to each other, and it's very likely that Cornwallis and the Jesuits sited their houses in view of one another in case an alarm needed to be raised. I mean, it is pretty early in Maryland history, such as when a Richard Ingle would appear in the creek off of your property. And by the way, Ingle also raided St. Inigo's house. Next slide. Excavations at St. Inigo's, this one at Webster Field, yielded this rich collection of early 17th century artifacts, including in the upper left, a coin weight, a candlestick, a jeton, Chinese porcelain. I cannot emphasize how rare Chinese porcelain is in Maryland and Virginia at this time, and tobacco pipe fragments that were made out in Virginia and sent to Maryland. Artifacts like these, if we find them, will be our signpost to Cross Manor. Next slide. We can also expect trade goods, such as these found at St. Inigo's. Up on the upper left are tobacco pipes. You see the beads. In the middle, iron object is a knife, a pair of scissors or part of a pair of scissors, and then a brass bead. Cornwallis was an Indian trader who, like the Jesuits, interacted with the colony's indigenous people on a regular basis. So we expect that these kinds of artifacts will be at Cross Manor. Next slide. So to find Cross Manor, I've submitted this proposal, as Jessica said, to the Maryland Historical Trust to fund this effort. And to show the trust that there is local support, I am asking you for $5,000, funds that would come to and be managed by the St. Mary's College of Maryland Foundation. These funds will be used to pay 2 staff archaeologists to assist with the project, which I believe could take 10 weeks or so, although the plan is to stretch it out over 2 semesters to maximize student participation. I also want to note that I have landowner support. In the early planning stages, property owners welcome the students and me to their yards, and we have received permission from everyone whose property is in the Cross Manor, what we call hotspot, where we think the house may be, and it's about 20 or 30 acres. You can see where St. Mary's students in these slides in past classes, and if you remember, Commissioner Board before you had supported work at the Thomas Gerard Manor House, which was up in the 7th District. Students digging, washing artifacts, identifying objects, and then ultimately presenting the results of their findings. So it becomes a real great way to find a really important site, involve students, many of whom are not from St. Mary's County, in the history of this place. Next slide. I've tried to anticipate your interest in questions, but I am also happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I thank you very much for your interest and for having me tell you about this project.
One last little note that I'd like to make is that back on, I say back like it was so long ago, August 6th, the Historic Preservation Commission convened a special meeting during which time the members voted unanimously to support this request that Dr. King and I are making this morning.
I have one statement to say here, and I'm a little biased since I'm on the 4 to 400 Commission that Governor Hogan put me on, and I worked quite a bit with Dr. King, and I'm looking forward to seeing this through. Something from our mission statement here that we need to bear in mind as we're making this decision here is to one of the items part of our mission statement is to preserve historical county assets, and I can't think of a more something that goes along with the deep history of this county, and when you start getting into the story of Ingle and his plundering up and down the Potomac River, and his home base. I think he was home based at Jen Boyd's house up there in Bushwood, wasn't it? That was part of his home base, and
He
then
could have been.
over to the northern neck and down to St. Mary's City. This is real important stuff for especially coming up to 400 in that, because we need to. It's a story that needs to be told. And
well, I have one question, comment. Nobody loves history more than I do, and I think it's it's fantastic. But
bet Dr. King does.
Maybe. But my main question here, and in reading, the first paragraph of the grant agreement here, St. Mary's County, Maryland, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County may appropriate county funds for civic, community, or public purposes if, in the judgment of the county commissioners, the appropriations encourages and fosters public good and general welfare of the county. It is an amazing search, but we are talking about using taxpayer dollars. What is the benefit to the taxpayers of St. Mary's County if we were to fund this grant?
That's actually a great question, and I would have gone longer about, all the great benefits, but was also worried about taking too much of your time. We have partnered with the Southern Maryland National Heritage Area, which is not included in my presentation, but that has committed also a sum of $5,000 to help the students with blog presentations, to basically, let people know that we're looking for a really important site. And that even if people might not necessarily visit it, because it is on private property, they can come to know about it and learn about this really important history. If anything, the last couple of years have taught us is how, people sometimes don't have the full story on history. And so Thomas Cornwallis, whose story really is remarkable. I mean, I'd always planned to look for Cross Manor. It just didn't come up until recently when the new owners were asking me, you really got to find that early house. And then I thought, this is such an important part of that early Maryland story. It didn't just take place in St. Mary's City. It takes place throughout the county. I don't know if it took place up in Bushwood at that early date. It eventually does, you're right. Where there's some rabble-rousers living up in that part of the world.
Yeah, there's a few over there.
Yeah, the descendants of Richard Engel. But I think it gives people, I want my students and I want county citizens as they drive down the road to know that history didn't take place over there. It took place everywhere in this county. I mean, there were people in Lexington Park. They might not have made major accomplishments, but it is important, I think, for people to understand how incredibly deeply historic this is. As you can tell, I feel very strongly about this. I could go on, but I also hope that that gives you some sense of why I think it is a benefit to taxpayers to know where these important resources are and to ensure that they're protected, that they don't get wiped out inadvertently. If homeowners know where an important site is, they can avoid it. They might locate their garage somewhere else.
And Commissioner Ostro, I would just add to that, I've heard St. Mary's County, specifically historic St. Mary's City, compared to Jamestown and Williamsburg, whereas they are 90% uncovered and we are 10% uncovered. And there's so much potential here with history and so much importance to it that it is an economic driver, I think, for tourism.
But it's on private property. I mean, nobody's going to come and tour that site.
But the story that will come out of it, the research and the better understanding of the historical significance of it, I think makes it definitely worthwhile. So I'll make the motion. I move to amend the budget to grant the St. Mary's College of Maryland Foundation $5,000 from the Commissioner's Reserve for the purposes discussed and authorize the Commissioner President to execute any related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays?
No.
Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Next up, from the Department of Public Works and Transportation is the Ready 9 Aviation Academy, LLC. I believe this is a lease?
Correct.
Morning, Commissioners. John Norris, Director of Public Works and Transportation, here to present Ready 9 Aviation Academy's lease renewal. They are requesting a renewal of and a new one-year lease. They have been tenants of the airport terminal since 2020. They are formerly known as Southern Maryland Seaplanes. They've operated their business since 2018.
I think they're still known as in our proclamation we made this morning.
That's right.
Seaplane.
That's correct. That's correct. So this is $15.75 a square foot per year lease. It is automatically renewing. It has a 2.5% escalator, and we're asking for the board to approve that lease.
All right, I move to approve the Ready 9 Aviation Academy LLC lease agreement for office space within the Captain Walter Francis Duke Terminal Building at the St. Mary's County Regional Airport and authorize the Commissioner President to sign any related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir. Next up, from the Department of Recreation and Parks, the Myrtle Point Wildlife Management Plan Renewal. Director Ray Bivens presenting. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have before you today a 10-year agreement, which is a renewal of our existing agreement with DNR that manages archery deer hunting, which started in 2016 at Myrtle Point, and then duck hunting, which goes back to 2001 at the property. In total, 141 acres are available for hunters. The season runs from October 15th through January 31st, and they're limited to 6 deer hunters per day.
And this is no change, just a combination of the two different agreements into one.
Yeah, the agreements had expired, so the time now is to renew for the upcoming season.
I move to approve the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Wildlife Management Agreement for the Myrtle Point Cooperative Wildlife Management Area and authorize the Commissioner President to sign all related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bevins.
Thank you. Next up, from Department of Emergency Services, the fiscal year 2025 Homeland Security. Director Jen Utz, followed by the Emergency Manager, Amy Plesso.
Good morning,
ladies.
Commissioners. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
So our first agenda item today is a request. We have received notice of award for a federal grant. It is federal fiscal year 25 for the amount of $94,100. If we are able to get approval to accept that grant, that will be used for critical infrastructure to support information technology, cybersecurity, our partners in the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office for law enforcement initiatives and surveillance, and a sort of a shared resource between emergency services and DPWT for emergency signage on the roadway that will help us in the event of an evacuation or mass evacuation to help direct traffic. So those are the projects we have earmarked for that $94,000 if the commissioners so approve the acceptance.
I move to approve the FFY 2025 subrecipient agreement for the State Homeland Security Grant Project US 2620 from the Department of Homeland Security and have Commissioner President sign any related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you. And next up from...
We have a second motion.
Right.
I move to approve the budget amendment as discussed in the amount of $23,900 and have Commissioner President sign any related documents.
Second.
Quick discussion on that. So this is a reduction of 23,900 because the grant's a little less than what we thought it was going to be?
Correct.
And are we just reducing the scope of what we were going to purchase, or are we making up with it with other funds?
So some of the projects I think will end up being
Okay.
shorted, but we'll try to make do with what we have.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you. Next up from Emergency Services is the 2025 Emergency Management Performance Grant.
Along the same lines, received notification of a grant award in the amount of $83,396, of which we anticipated, I believe it was $111,000 for that grant.
Yep.
If the commissioners so approve, we would like to use that grant to fund a grant-funded emergency planner in the Department of Emergency Services Emergency Management. We have, as you know, a lot of local threats to our county with, man-made and natural disasters, and having an additional person to help Amy and Quinn plan for these events and get ahead, building and maintaining relationships, conducting training and drills, and assisting with the upcoming hazard mitigation plan would really be helpful for our department. We do propose another budget amendment, obviously, to reduce the amount, because we thought we were going to get 111, we got to 83,000. And the department does have salary savings to cover the fringe for this position for fiscal year '27.
I move to approve the FFY 2025, FY26 subrecipient agreement for the Emergency Management Performance Grant Project US 2612 and authorize Commissioner President to execute related documents.
Second.
Have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Motion 2, I move to approve the budget amendment to accept the grant award US 2612.
Second.
Have a first, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
And last
Thank you.
up is the 911 Board.
I'll ask Deputy Director Shea to come forward. This is her wheelhouse here. So we have, again, received notification from the State of Maryland 911 Board Trust Fund of the intent to award $1.767950, $1.7 million in grant funds to support our 911 center. Again, the types of projects that we would fund with this is the 3-year rolling plan that we have. So this is
That
FY
would be my
27.
question.
You see 28 and 29 before you as well. This is one of our big years for the grant funding. It's going to sort of taper off a little bit in the next 2 years. But this would be to help us refresh our backup center, the console and equipment down there. It always supports our training and education, the mandatory requirements, recertification for our dispatchers. And the big thing is our network, our phone system, and how we receive calls through, and then our quality assurance program, which we're pending an update to you all on a future agenda item on how we're doing in comms, and that's coming soon too. So Kirsten, I don't know if you want to add anything additional to what this fund helps us with?
It supports the center. The console furniture is a big thing this year. We wrapped up the grounding project, now having funding available to bring that center up to date with the equipment there, and then really the recurring as in that next gen 911 maintenance cost. And then as Jen elaborated, our QPR program did kick off August 1st, and this is another year of paying that program for reviews of our 911 center and our call takers and how they're doing.
And this is free money. There's no match.
There's no match on this.
Now, this,
I like free.
the funds for this come from our cell phone bills, is that correct?
They
This
do.
is the 911 charge
The
that we all
surcharge.
pay on our,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Okay,
just so people understand that.
all right.
I move to approve the spending plan for the Maryland 911 Board Trust Fund Project MD 2738 for the total amount of $1,767,950 for FY 2027 and authorize the Director of Emergency Services to sign the related documents.
Second.
That's not how the motion is written here.
You want my cheat sheet?
You got the cheat sheet? Oh,
Yeah.
Did it change it? I move to approve the spending plan for the Maryland 911 Board Trust Fund Project MD 2738 for the total amount of $1,767,950 for FY 2027 and authorize the Commissioner President to sign any related documents.
Second.
Got a first and second now. All in agreement?
Aye.
Any disagreement? Ayes have it.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioners.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, from the Department of Aging and Human Services is fiscal year 27, supporting older adults with resources, grant application, and notification of grant award.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ladies.
Director
Thank you, Mr.
Lori
Weisskopf.
Jennings Harris, Finance, Rebecca.
Yes,
Kessler.
so the finance person is Gori Apti, fiscal manager extraordinaire, and Rebecca Kessler, home and community-based services division manager, also excellent at what she does. Happy to have them join me. So this is the SOAR grant. You've seen this grant before, formerly known as Senior Care. So now it's the Supporting Older Adults with Resources from the Maryland Department of Aging. This is the application as well as the notification of grant award for FY27. The grant amount is $296,107 for the term starting July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2027. So Ms. Kessler will tell you a little bit about the SOAR grant and the program and how we use these funds.
Good morning.
Morning.
So this program operates pretty much the same as it has for well over 20 years, where we would provide gap-filling services for consumers who are eligible, our 65 and older group. There is a means test for this program, assets and income, and then also a functional assessment that our health department provides for us called the Enter-I. So our consumers that are enrolled in this program benefit from having services in their home, elongating the need for institutional care, preventing it for many people. Of course, these are individuals who are reliant on others for care, many of which who are homebound, who receive home care, assistance with the pharmacy, assistance with supplies, durable medical equipment, environmental modification, which is something that we can expand this year due to our increased funding, where we'll be able to do more inside people's homes to make it more usable and helpful to caregivers to provide care in the space. And we'll also be able to increase our caseload due to, of course, increased funding. We can serve more people. So this is a good expanding year for us, where we will hone in on more congregate services, where we will look at housekeeping and modifying the inside of homes, making some adaptive measures, expanding bathrooms. This is a very good program where there's very few programs where we can determine eligibility right at this level. Most of our programs are funded federally and state, and that's determined at a different level. So we can serve our people as needed here with this program.
Excellent.
Very good, very good. Any other questions, Commissioners, about it?
I move to approve the SOAR grant application and notice of grant award received from the Maryland Department of Aging and authorize Commissioner President to execute any related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any disapproval? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Now we have motion two.
Motion two, I move to approve the related budget amendment in the amount of $107,262 and authorize Commissioner President to execute any related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you. And next up is the fiscal year 27 through 30 area plan, application and notification of grant award for state grants.
So, Commissioners, this is our four-year roadmap. So the Maryland Department of Aging requires all area agencies on aging to complete a four-year plan. And the in-between years, we have to do an annual plan update. So this is a four-year plan for 27 through 30. So several division managers contribute to completing this plan. The Maryland Department of Aging has projected that we will receive combined federal and state grants as well as county funds, $871,141. And so Gauri Apte will tell you a little bit more about this program, the annual plan, and the budget.
Good morning. So as Lori mentioned, this is the four-year area plan for FY27 to FY30 plan years. It consists of 6 state grants and 9 federal grants. These grants support wide range of programs, including home-delivered and congregate meals, elder abuse, caregiver support, community outreach, guardianship. The total plan budget is $871,141, and it consists of grant funds, county funds, and donations that we estimate to receive from our home-delivered meals and congregate meals program. We have received the NGA for the state grants, and the federal grants NGA, we will be receiving it later. We request that you approve the area plan and the state grants NGA.
Very good.
Sounds good.
I move to approve the FY 2027 to 2030 area plan application and notice of grant award for the state grants, project numbers MD 2701, MD 2702, MD 2704, MD 2706, MD 2714, and MD 2742 received from the Maryland Department of Aging on behalf of the St. Mary's County Department of Aging and Human Services, the related budget amendments, and authorize the Commissioner President to execute the related document.
Second.
There were first and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Department of Finance with the bond sale award acceptance.
Boy.
Yeah.
Director
More money.
Renetta Van Cleef.
Morning, ladies.
Good morning, and I have with me Pam Kelly with First Tryon Advisors. Hi there. She just arrived she was with our deputy director upstairs monitoring the bid process. So we have the
Good.
results.
How'd we do yet? We don't know yet.
We do, and we are here. We can cut right to the chase. We're here to ask permission, authorization for the county administrator to accept the bid for the bond award as certified by the chief financial officer. So there's a few steps that occur between the current bid close and escrow next week, and we're asking for permission to be able to move forward with those steps. But we had, well, drum roll please, 15 bid.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
16. Oh, 16.
We must have good credit.
Well, a part of the process was the presentations to the credit rating agencies during this process, and we were happy to be able to maintain our high credit ratings because, current geopolitical, the economic environment in Maryland was particularly a question for some of them, and how we are able to respond and pivot to that in that environment. So we were really happy to be able to maintain that. Came in at 3.97%. For a little bit of context, Metcom was well over 4%, almost 5%. And that was a few months ago, but the geopolitical environment has been kind of the same wavy environments. Let's see here. I have 4.86%. So very happy. Would you like to layer in some additional context?
Sure. The apparent low bidder is J.P. Morgan, and then what we call the cover, or the second lowest bidder, was Piper Sandler. There were 16 firms, and the interest rates bid ranged from the 3.970 up to a 4.067. So it was relatively tight, within 6 basis points, or rather within 9 basis points, excuse me. And, we were actually very happy with the number of bidders. We had made calls, to a number of the firms just to make sure that they had it on their list. And so we were really pleased, to see the number that came out. So I think that you should be happy with the outcome. We are.
Yeah. Last issuance was 12 bidders, so we're this larger issuance or other factors have increased the bidding. We appreciate that.
Do we have to sign the paperwork today?
No, we will be closing, so we're asking for permission for myself and then the county administrator to sign paperwork between now and close on August 25th.
Oh, okay. I don't have to sign anything this time?
Please.
Actually, you will be signing the paperwork today.
Today.
It is on it. It should be here. It was FedEx this morning for you to sign in preparation for the closing on August 25th.
Okay, good. I knew it was something I had to sign on that. Usually I do.
Thank you.
I was trying to remember when it's going to be
so
done.
excited.
I want to make sure I get it done in time. So it'll be today.
Yeah.
And
yes.
then try to reiterate this every single time we do this. This is not new projects. This is already planned, already budgeted. This is just the next step in the plan. But all of the money that is in this bond sale is for projects that are already on the books, already exist, that have been already approved in our county budget.
Correct. These projects, the complete list is in the June 23rd presentation where we asked for permission to be able to go out to issue these bonds. Thank you. And also in this package. Good eye. It's general obligation authority related to FY27 and prior projects. So this is not future. This is current. Many of these projects have already been well on their way, and some actually completed. The reimbursement in June 23rd was going to be at $22 million. We are currently at $28 million of county expended funds on these projects because of the progress that's been made that we will be reimbursing the county for.
So, and to put it another way, this is debt that's planned for. This is within our debt limits that we have set.
Absolutely.
Okay. Very good.
Very good, very good. Okay.
I move to authorize the county administrator to accept the bid for the bond award as certified by the chief financial officer.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any noes?
No.
One no. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next up is from your favorite county administrator to approve an employment contract for something I think the emergency services and the community at large is excited about. Yes, please
like
come
she's
up.
coming forward
Come on
already.
down. This is Dr. McKeska.
McKesta?
Yeah.
And she has a lot of experience, I think about 25 years. She's
Yeah.
been with us, not quite that long, since October of 25 as a part-time veterinarian. And in the budget last year, you all approved taking that to full-time. And we're all very excited.
We're
Thank
excited
you,
you've done
that's
that.
mine.
Yes, tell us a little bit about yourself.
As mentioned, I'm a 1999 graduate of NC State College of Veterinary Medicine. I've spent the 27 years of my career mainly in animal shelters and spay-neuter operations for the community. So I moved to Maryland about 8 years ago, and I'm just looking to keep going with that. It's a little tighter in Maryland and the Southern Maryland in general for what I'm used to for employment for animal shelters. So haven't been as much since I've been here, but was really thrilled to have this opportunity open up for me.
How does being a vet at an animal shelter differ from private practice veterinarians out in the community?
I mean, it's similar in the sense that we're always looking at what we call spectrum of care, and more so in animal shelters, there have to be a little bit tougher decisions made about what kind of treatments we have available, what we can afford to do, and there's more of a population management focus, what we can do for the most animals with the money and resources that we have.
Right.
So it's a little bit of that. That doesn't mean we can't provide higher levels of care in certain cases if we feel like it's appropriate.
Right.
But in general, we're trying to do the most for the animals of the county with what we have available.
Good, good.
And then just as a side note, not directly related, but with the animal shelter, I believe over the weekend, the ARU group, the Animal Rescue Outreach Organization that partners very well with our shelter, was able to start installing some shade sails in the dog
Running
area.
Yeah, dog runs.
So,
Yeah,
and
no, they're a really lovely group that really wants to help expand what we can do with the private sector.
Very good.
really
Very
good.
good. Very good.
So welcome.
Well, welcome to your new job.
Thank you, I appreciate it
Approved first.
very much.
It's like you've done a lot of this, so it's not new to you, but we appreciate you taking this on.
We better
No,
vote.
yeah, thank you.
We got to approve the contract before you welcome her, right?
Okay, yeah. All right, need a motion.
Okay, I move to approve the employment contract for the veterinarian for St. Mary's County Government and authorize Commissioner President sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Now I can welcome you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you for taking it on, thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Yeah. That is all, Commissioner President Guy. Back to you.
Damn, it's about time you showed up. You had too much to say already. Keep on going. Okay, next we have Commissioner time, and we'll start with Commissioner Ostroff.
I figured you'd start with Commissioner Colvin. He never gets to go first.
Yeah, he's never first. Yeah. I don't want to break an 8-year rule sometimes.
I love it.
All right. So we've had a couple of weeks off. Well, just not having our regular Tuesday meetings. The commissioners are never really off. Had a lot going on in and throughout the county. This commissioner was pretty busy over the last couple of weeks. On August 4th, we had National Night Out, and that is always a fun time. I made it to 4 different locations in and throughout the county. Got absolutely drenched started off at Nicollet Park, and a rainstorm hit, and we got absolutely drenched. So that was kind of fun, going to all the different locations, squishing in my shoes. And fortunately, I had a dry shirt in the car, so I was able to put on at least a clean dry shirt. But it was a great evening, lots of people out in the community. I just absolutely love National Night Out. It's just such a wonderful time to get together and meet new friends and catch up with people you might not have seen over for a while, and it was just such a wonderful time, and I've seen it grow so much over just the last 4 years that I've been a commissioner, especially in Nicollet Park. I mean, it was packed. Nicollet Park was packed. It was just such a fun time. Great food. We had a great time where it was able to honor Jessica Proctor with 5 years of planning and service to National Night Out. So congratulations once again. She's absolutely awesome lady. Does so much in the community, and we wouldn't be having the Nicollet National Night Out without her organizing it and putting it together and making that happen every year. So Jessica, thank you so much. On Saturday the 8th, we had Fire Rescue Appreciation Day at the fairgrounds. That was a great time. It was hot. I will say that for sure. It was a very warm day, but we had a great time out doing that, just appreciating all of our volunteer fire and rescue personnel. Can't say enough blessings to them and thank yous to them for all that they do for our community. And a big shout out to as well our Department of Emergency Services for really planning and organizing and putting that together, and really being a big part in making that happen, and everybody, all the county employees who were involved in putting that together and making it happen. So thank you once again to all of our fire rescue personnel. And then on the 10th, I was privileged to be able to attend the EMS graduation. We graduated, I think it was 9? I want to say 9, yeah, 9. And that's excellent. So we've got 9 new EMS technicians here working in the county. There's another one coming up, and I think they're expecting to graduate another 6 or 7 more. So that is fantastic. We definitely need that here in the community. So congratulations to all the graduates and the upcoming graduates. And then after that, we all went to the MACO conference, the summer MACO conference in Ocean City. A lot of great sessions to sit in on. I sat in on several of the housing sessions, and it was great to learn and come away with the different ways that so many counties and communities are tackling this problem. It's one thing, I've said many times. I mean, the commissioners up here, we can't change the price of a 2x4. Okay, that's a national problem. Housing costs are up, but what we need to do, and it was great to learn some of these things and make some contacts of people to talk to, what we need to be able to do is think outside of the box and come up with new ways to help people get the financing they need, partnering with local banks and being able to, there's lots of different programs that are out there, federal programs that we need to be tapping into as a county, and ways to look at incentivizing developers. So something this commissioner is really looking forward to working on, and seeing how we can help people get to home ownership in this community. And that was it was a great time. Mako, it's a great opportunity. There's a lot of other sessions that I won't bore everybody with that we attended, but it's an awesome time to just to network and talk to different county people in county government for all the different things that we look at. Hey, this is working well for us. I see that's working well for you. How can we adopt that, and trading ideas and learning all the different things that are available to us. So I had a great time with that. Really enjoyable. I love going to those and gaining all that knowledge from there. And now we're back in the county and we're back to work. We've had some heavy rains the last few evenings, so I'm asking everybody to please make sure your houses are all buttoned up. We're getting still into a lot of hot weather. There's a lot of hot weather out there, so please check on your older neighbors. Make sure they have what they need. Make sure, if somebody needs to run to the store for them or anything we can do for them to make sure they're not out in the heat and that they're well taken care of. And also, please, we're all very busy people. Make sure you're checking the back seat of your car every time you get out of it. We don't ever want to have a pet or a child left in a car. So make sure you're getting in that habit and you're making sure you're looking in that back seat as we rush through our busy lives. Once again, I've had a lot of people come to me that they're still just, especially on 3 Notch, right around the Town Creek area. There's a lot of people that are just rampantly running red lights. Happened to me yesterday. The light changed and somebody came woofing through that red light, and then somebody right behind that person came screaming through that on a solid red light. Slow down, St. Mary's. Okay, there's nowhere you need to get that is worth getting into a car accident, injuring yourself, or possibly killing somebody else. So let's just slow down, please. It's very dangerous out there. So please slow down and let's everybody get where they need to get safely. And we still got a lot of great farmers markets going on. Looking forward to, I'm back in county. Saturday, I'm going to be hitting the farmers markets and getting out and about throughout the county. So everybody support local, get out and shop. It's August. We just did the proclamation today for National Black Business Month. So let's make sure we're supporting not only, black businesses and every business here, the small businesses here in our community, because that's what makes St. Mary's such a special place. It's one of the things that makes St. Mary's very special. So support local and everybody keep safe. And with that, I'm going to pass it on.
All right. Thank you. So I'll dive right in just at Mako. It was probably in the years I've been up here at this desk, which is a whopping 4. This was the most informative Mako session I have been to, and I did make sure that I told the Mako staff the same thing. Covered a lot of, there's always a lot of topics there, and housing was a big one this year, and I went to one about elections, and I had some good discussions with Senator Cheryl Kagan and with the Deputy Director of the State Board of Elections about how we could improve the voting processes in the state of Maryland if the state would sit back and just look at everything as a whole, as opposed to through basically a telescope with a small range of view, because there are people who get left out of elections all the time, and there's ways to address it. Other states do it, and I encourage them to look at what other states are doing as some kind of guidance. Of course, data centers was a big discussion. The first day, last session of the day was standing room only for data centers, and the deputy, the vice county executive from Loudoun County, Virginia, was one of the presenters on the panel, and he was very thorough, very pragmatic, and very responsible, I would say, about data centers and how Loudoun County learned a lot of hard lessons, and they learned a couple easy things. Now, it was presented in an objective way, and I took it in an objective way, and my stance remains, we do not need them in St. Mary's County, do not want them, and I'll take that one to the grave. Good session on CRRF. There was a lot of questions cleared up in CRRF, and the biggest surprise of that session is when I stood up and I asked a question, I prefaced it with my name, of course, my title, and where I was, and the fact that we only have one zip code in St. Mary's County that qualified for the 150% of the arrest rate. And the entire room just basically just deep gasp. They were stunned that there was only one zip code in our county. And that just goes to prove the disconnect between the large counties and the small counties that we have to put up with every time we go to Mako. Everything is seen through the prism of, the Montgomerys, the Prince Georgeses, and they don't look at the Kents, they don't look at the Wycomicos, they don't look at the St. Mary's, Alleghenies, or the Washington counties, and it's really sad. And there's 17 jurisdictions that are considered rural, but we always end up getting the scraps or just, I didn't even think about you guys, and that's basically how the large counties, Indianapolis thinks of the rules. Had a fantastic meeting Friday morning that our Director of Economic Development, Cindy Greb, put together with the Secretary of Labor, Portia Wu, and her staff, talking about the Maryland Apprenticeship Program. And I will beat the drum for a Maryland Apprenticeship Program for the trades. Another one until the day I die. The trades are very important. There's a statistic I read, I can't recall exactly where, but I do remember the hard numbers. For every 5 tradespeople that retire and leave the workforce, there's only 2 to take their place. Eventually, that math is going to fail us. And we have resources like the Tech Center that are putting kids out into the workforce, career ready, as they walk across the stage of graduation. We need to keep that program going, need to expand it as much as we can. We can't build a new tech center, but we can partner with more businesses if possible, partner with the College of Southern Maryland, use the dual enrollment program that Blueprint requires for the trades, not just the soft skills like business management and stuff like that, which is important. And we also have a unique opportunity with getting up with the pipeline with early childhood program at the Tech Center and at CSM with our Early Learning Center right next door. And now, if you remember, that was one of my primary goals of creating a pipeline of homegrown talent. And it goes back to what I think about a lot of our agencies is we're going to do recruitment, retention, retirement. And that can apply across the entire spectrum of county government. School's back, and if everybody remembers the old Staples commercial, some parents are saying it's the most wonderful time of the year. So today was a dry run for school buses, so you'll see some big yellow out there, action going on. A couple of dates that everybody needs to be aware of. All the open houses are going to be on the 24th, so you're going to see a lot of traffic around all the schools. Please be careful. Take a couple extra minutes if you have to pass by a school during school hours to deal with the traffic coming in and out of open houses. And 8/26 is D-Day, the one day they go back. And my oldest son is excited. My youngest son is excited because it's his senior year, but he's also disappointed that he has to go back to school and he has to go from a full-time employee at his welding to being a part-time welder. And so he's saddened by that because his truck only gets 14 miles to the gallon. And so I imagine I'm sure he'll be visiting Dad going, "Hey, Dad, can you hook me up?" So with that, I will say thank you. We have a memorial ceremony at 2 p.m. here in the hall, and I will pass it on now.
Hey,
Very
Eric,
good.
you're last this time.
All right. Well, over the weekend, I was able to attend the St. Mary's County Advanced Life Support's installation of officers and their awards program for all the calls that they read. And their volunteers gave over 9,000 duty hours this year. Very impressive, and just thankful for that group and all they do. So it was a good time to be able to be there with them. And then I just want to jump into the Mako conference, some of my observations too. I want to echo what Commissioner Alderson said. It was a really good summer conference. Sometimes the summer conferences feel like a little more fluff, but there was a lot of just really good information this time and some good meetings and stuff. And I'll start off with Commissioner President Guy and I attended a meeting with the MDOT folks. And this is one that we have every year out there at Mako. And sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes we get some information, and we're thankful for the county staff that was able to be there with us and help us stay straight. But we did hear that the bridge, the Thomas Johnson Bridge, they are doing a survey using some kind of radar, LiDAR, something like that, to determine the height of boats that go underneath. This is needed for the Coast Guard in order to determine down the road if the replacement bridge needs to be as tall, which it probably does not. And so that's a good thing that that's happening. We heard about 235 and the traffic lights. If you drive 235, you see that there's extra traffic lights up, and I think they said it would be October before those are actually active and working again. And then just their vision for improvements on 235, and you all will probably remember that they had planned to take away one of the right turn lanes heading south and turn it into a bike lane, and then that plan has since changed. They have some other plans that they're working of what I think is questionable value and will not improve the flow of traffic, but their lens is entirely through safety, and that is what they are looking at. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that as that moves forward, and if they have the funding to even move forward with it.
And just to make sure that you put in there too, it's the state, not
Yeah,
the county.
it's not us, it's the state. So one of the plans, I don't think it's a secret, is they want to take the southbound turn lane on Chancellor's Road onto 235 and make it a red light only turn, make it 2 turn lanes, and get rid of the slip lane in there. And that'll be interesting to see when
How
that
that works,
happens
yeah.
and what that would look like.
that would be.
But then the data center forum, a lot of talk about data centers, and it's always funny anytime I always try to share on Facebook everything that I go to at Mako so people know what I'm doing out there. And anytime I talk about data centers, I get the questions, are data centers coming to St. Mary's County? Are you all meeting with data center companies? No and no. We're not meeting with them. We've had no discussions that I've been involved in regarding data centers. There's nothing with that. But Commissioner Alderson hit on it, the Loudoun County official that gave a presentation. That was probably the most packed session I've seen at a Mako conference in a long time, standing room only. And his presentation with what they've experienced in Loudoun County, and that is the densest conglomeration of data centers anywhere in the world right there. And it's interesting throughout the conference as we hear more about data centers, it doesn't really matter if it comes to St. Mary's County or not. We don't get the revenue, and that's fine, but we do feel the impacts of it. And not just if it's in our neighboring counties, but anywhere in the PJM, the Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland coalition of group that controls the electricity flow throughout the county or throughout those states. There are 11, I think, states or more. It's a mess. It's a mess that ratepayers have to pay for data centers. We're paying for data centers that have gone in Virginia, Pennsylvania, anywhere else, and it's a shame. Another interesting session I went to was on Eric's ID law, not my ID law, but this other guy named Eric. And this is, you might be familiar with it, it's something in Maryland, it's a great thing where you can voluntarily have a butterfly icon put on your driver's license. It's for people who have hidden disabilities, predominantly autism, but other hidden disabilities, so that a police officer or other individual would know quickly that this person is dealing with these disabilities and might make special allowances if needed. And it's a really good thing. I was fortunate enough to meet the young man, Eric, who the law is named for, and his mom, who's such a strong advocate. And it's a really good thing. They're trying now to get it implemented nationwide, which I think would be great. And so that was good. There's a lot of discussion, understandably, around county budgets. And one of the salient quotes coming out of that is there's more volatility in the revenue mix going forward, especially when we talk about income taxes. It's going to be a challenge, and especially looking at the state's budget coming up. And then
there was a panel on the blueprint. This session overall for MACO was probably the least amount I'd heard the blueprint talked about, but then the last day of the MACO conference, they had a panel on the blueprint with some really important people up there. There was the president of the county commissioners from Queen Anne's County, Jack Wilson, who's a good friend of ours on this board, so he provided really good perspective. But then there was Carrie Wright, the state superintendent for schools, and some other individuals, and then a guy named Ike Leggett. And if you don't know who he is, he's a former Montgomery County executive, and he is the chair of the Accountability and Implementation Board for the Blueprint. So he's the one tasked with implementing this whole thing, and he's been involved for a long time with it. And I will say that the most disappointing part of the entire conference was when that conversation happened and he talked about it. He acknowledged that the state is facing a really tough fiscal impact in their next budget. And he said he did not want to discuss options or potential solutions. As far as he was concerned, it was full speed ahead, not discussing basically the reality on the ground. So it'll be very interesting to see what will happen. There was conversation about how can we protect county budgets, and that there was never any good answers to that because the state will invariably send down more costs to the counties this coming year. The conference ended, for the people who stuck around to the very end, like they do this every 4 years, with a candidate forum for the statewide offices. And so I listened in and took some notes, and especially for Governor Wes Moore, who had the ability to go first in it, he was talking about data centers. He had a wonderful phrase. He said, local jurisdictions need to have the final say for what goes into local jurisdictions, when he was talking about data centers. And to me, that's a great phrase, and I want to see the state apply it to everything across the board, including housing, solar, cannabis, and other stuff. Local jurisdictions should have the final say, not the state. And that's where he also did not answer the question about protecting county budgets, which was unfortunate. So we shall see what happens. But that's my report, and thank you all. Have a great week.
And capitalizing on just what you talked about, I'm also for those who don't understand, MACO, the Maryland Association of Counties, comprises all 23 counties in the city of Baltimore. And fortunately, I've been heavily involved with it because they do a good job. We can't stop legislation, but at least at times we can tone it down so it fits our needs better, or fits our needs at all. And it's a tough process, and I got to give them credit for the jobs they do, and going back to these authors of these bills and everything and doing something about it. But what he just talked about, the governor wasn't sure about what this going to happen this year, and the board of directors, we met with him on Friday afternoon. And he sort of said the same thing, like, well, I control a certain amount of money, but he sort of threw it on the general legislators that they're passing bills and laws with no funding channel attached to them. And he tries to even veto them, and they get overridden, of course. And so only the option he has at that point, because one of us did ask him, I said, well, you've been passing unfunded mandates down to us for the past couple of years. And, of course, we're going into a deficit of about $3 billion with the state of Maryland now. And he just said, well, it's up to the General Assembly. So he's passing the buck. That's just what he's doing. He's passing the buck. And it doesn't seem to have any good answers for that. And I was surprised, but that's where we're headed for. And I wasn't surprised if it's going to be more passed down to us. We've already got the teachers right now, retirement fund that we're funding almost fully. And SDOT, 90%. And various other things that are costing us a loss of almost $10 million a year now. And it's probably going to get worse this coming year when he can't find the money to get out of his $3 billion deficit now. But it was interesting. MACO is a good organization that we provide good training, especially for those that get into a new position, those that we got 2 positions here that will be filling up. They've changed after the election year. It's usually in December. They have the winter conference. It's going to be in January. And so for a couple of days, a lot of their session is geared to giving people training in their new job, which is very important to get a good groundwork as you step into this job. So hopefully we'll take advantage of that. Data centers, I had to go to Frederick County a couple of months ago and went to visit their new data center. What an amazing complex. Unbelievable. But this company has acquired 1,400 acres just outside of Frederick, the city of Frederick, about 20, 25 miles. It used to be an old Alcoa aluminum smelting plant that they demolished, took over and everything. They right now have 6 buildings that are under construction. The first one, a 225,000 square foot building, is going to be done by Amazon and completely ready to be outfitted, you might say. They get the guy who gave us the briefing was, I think, the vice president of the company that's doing all the building. And he quoted that they just know what the outside is, and they do racking inside and shelving. They have no idea what goes in there because they have nothing to do with the inside. The company who buys the building, or it's their building, and they put the equipment in there. They have no idea what goes in there. But the fascinating thing was they're not using, there's a lot of misinformation about data centers. For example, it said we do not use groundwater. They use, for this particular buildings they're building, they're using the municipal, believe it or not, gray water from the city of Frederick and Frederick County flowing into there, and it, whatever it does to cool down its equipment, then it goes into these big tanks to cool down, then they send it back. And then the companies there dispose of the water. Supposedly, it has no more contamination to it, we hope. He said it did not. He said, if anything, it's probably cleaner. So we asked about electricity, and he said, well, he's working with a company right now to future data centers, which are obviously going to be a lot more, that they're going to have maybe their own electrical, and actually mini nuclear plants attached to these buildings. So it's just, it's amazing what they're going through. I didn't think about this earlier, but this is in the pipeline already. Now, noise level, the only thing I could see was the building are almost finished, had 8 of these tractor trailers, auxiliary power units that were on these tractor trailers beside this building. There was 4 on each side. And I said, wow, that's got to be some kind of noisy, because they're all diesel generator type plants. And he said they're going to build a room around them, they'll put additional mufflers to them, but that they'll only be run 15 minutes once a month, because they're required to have 80% backup power if the company that should lose power. They have to have 80% backup. So at the end of the session, I sort of questioned the guy about, damn, I was worried about St. Mary's County, what's going to happen here, because we haven't been approached, that's for sure. And he said the main problem they got is water, access to water. That sort of bothered me because we're surrounded by 550 miles of water. So he said, I said, well, we haven't got, we're a small peninsula, blah, 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 small property. Well, we don't need a lot of property to build it on. And I said, well, we don't have any main transmission lines down our way. We're sort of limited on power. And he looked at me and he said, between here and Loudoun County, we ran 2 underground pipelines to the data centers down in Loudoun County, underneath the Potomac River in 2 places. These are big pipelines. I'm not talking about something that's a couple of feet. It's big. And he said, we spent $1 billion doing that. We have no problem running power anywhere. We'll run the lines if we have to. So these companies are doing all this. They put a lot of money into this. They're going, this is big time stuff. And but I still don't envision it happening down here. I hope not. But I think we probably need to look, especially the next board coming up, is looking at, since we control, and the governor sort of made a statement that we do, is looking at some kind of moratorium until we decide where these things can be put up at. And we'll have to start working on that later. Thanks to the EMT graduation classes just come out, we do have a shortage here in the county. And I'll tell anybody, if you're thinking about a career in emergency services, sign up and go through it. It's well worth it. It's a good start in your life. Housing, once again, all the stuff in the state's been talking about is mainly the large counties using large abandoned buildings, and they have to be close to, water and sewer, and of course transportation assets, blah blah blah. Nothing for the rural counties though to capitalize on. And I still think we need to look at some serious smaller housing type things. I hate to say it, tiny houses somewhere that could get people a start in life in a smaller unit. And as you grow your housing, grow your employment, you can move into a bigger house. So, but we need to do something about this, seriously. And the MDOT thing, I think one other thing we didn't talk about, they're going to do that light in Morganza on 242. I think it's supposed to be done in December, is it supposed to be up and
Yeah,
running?
by the end of the year, yep.
Yeah, by December. So they were sort of committed that we do have that coming. So for those of you that had a problem there, which I drive through there a lot, is up that hill, you can't see nothing. But anyway, with that being said, I need a motion to move into closed session.
I move to enter into closed session to discuss real property.
Second.
Have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.